appeal to ignorance fallacy?
Yes. Can I respond or no?
Okay, so therefore, an appeal to ignorance fallacy is a fallacy. So do you have any other rationale that God does not exist?
Are you going to let me talk?
Okay, sir, you are not responding to me like an adult. Do you have any other rational basis that God does not exist?
I don't think anyone can prove that anything does not exist.
So the answer is you do not have a rational basis to assert that God does not exist, correct?
Do you have a rational basis to assert that unicorns don't exist?
You are responding irrationally to me by asking a question. I will be more than happy to give you the proof for God's existence, okay? But we haven't gotten there yet, right? Okay. Because you atheists lack character, you lack critical thinking skills, critical listening skills. Now, do you have a rational justification that God does not exist?
No.
Okay, so are you now conceding that your God denialism is utterly and entirely irrational?
Is your unicorn denialism rational?
Okay, sir, you are not responding to me like an adult. That is a response that I would expect from a 15-year-old at the cafeteria table. Are you conceding that your atheism is entirely irrational?
Dude, I'm not following your script, and you're not letting me.
Goodbye.
Dude, you're such a.
Did I not warn you that if you persisted in dodging questions that I put to you, and that if you dodged multiple times that I would kick you? Did I not warn you about that several times?
You're proving my theory correct. That you will kick me for not saying what you want me to say.
What you just did was to, when I pointed out to you that I repeatedly warned you that I would kick you if you kept on dodging questions that I put to you. And what do when you dodge? So you're done. Goodbye. Okay. So these are the super geniuses have figured out that God doesn't exist, but they don't have a rational basis to assert that God does not exist. And all they do is they play the dodge game, right? Dodge, deflect, dodge, deflect, dodge, deflect. Right? These people are intellectually bankrupt. Right? Now, did I not repeatedly warn him? If you continue to dodge over and over again, and I warn you multiple times, I'm going to kick you. Did he continue to dodge my questions by responding to me, not in answering the questions that I put to him, but by responding with a counter question in order to dodge and to deflect? And then when I said, did I not warn you that I'm going to kick you if you continue to dodge and deflect? And what does he do? He dodged and deflected that question. So I warned him.
What?
And people say I'm mean. No, I do this with most of my guests. Yeah, there were at least 4 warnings, and I believe more. I warned him over and over and over again, and this is one of their this is one of their tricks that they repeatedly reach into the American atheist canvas tote bag. It's the canvas tote bag of the 107 strategies of misdirection out of their American atheist canvas tote bag. Okay. Now, had he conceded, as I clearly demonstrated, that his atheism was utterly and completely bankrupt.
Yep, irrational.
I would have then proceeded to explain to him how its existence is abundantly clear. The world overwhelmingly appears to be the product of ultimate intentional design, with the impossibility of its rational denial by claiming the world is an illusion of design. So this is what we get. We get intellectual nincompoops who all they've got is dodge, deflect. And he brought up the unicorn thing. That was embarrassing. We have very good reasons to believe that unicorns do not exist. Do they have good reasons to believe God does not exist? No, they don't. They just go, oh, there's no evidence for God. Okay, so what would the evidence be in a world where God did exist that you expect to necessarily be apparent that you don't see, that is necessary but not preferential? So, like I said, there is not a living, breathing human being on this planet that can rationally deny God. You cannot falsify God. It cannot be done.
Cannot be done, guys. Cannot be done. You need to abandon your atheism because there's no rational justification for it.
To his credit, at least he came up. Okay? Unlike most of the other spineless atheists. Discord clicking noise atheist. Oh, I love that, Apex. Yeah, that's Shannon Q with her Discord clicking noise effects. I love that. Thank you for bringing up that inside joke. Yeah, she was a train wreck when I dealt with her. She was a train wreck when she dealt with Tom Locke. Yeah, but I affectionately call her Shannon Q Duck Lips for a good reason. Well, I've been on TikTok now for well over a year, streaming on TikTok. I went on to Joel Reads the Bible once, and he immediately started being an asshat with me. And I told him as such, and I said, yeah, I'm not going to waste my time, because if this is what you're going to do the first time I show up, you're going to treat me with disrespect and resort to asshattery like you're a little teenage boy. I'm done with you. And so I left. And so I also blocked his account. Now, I ran into him on another stream, and he begged and pleaded with me to unblock him. And I said, no. When you host a stream like that, why should I unblock you? Did he? And I also pointed at him, was he willing to apologize for the way he treated me? And he wouldn't. So I said, good, I'm not unblocking you. Have I ever dealt with Justin? Yes, Justin invited me on his stream. I went on his stream, and immediately he was rude, obnoxious, and obscene with me. I informed Justin, and you can go onto YouTube, just type in Darth Dawkins and Deconstruction Zone. I informed him that if he continued to be rude, obnoxious, and obscene with me, I would not stay and discuss with him. I told him I was more than willing to have a battle of intellect with him, but he just decided he wanted to troll, which he knew that I would not tolerate, and he would leave. And then he lied about the title of the video, saying that I ran from him. Nothing of the kind happened. And by the way, Justin is a fool, because if you take all of his alleged Bible contradictions one by one and plug it into AI, AI will very quickly return what many scholars say about these alleged contradictions, when in fact they're not actually contradictions. Okay, so once again, there is no living, breathing atheist that can rationally refute the existence of God. God's existence is clear. It's rationally undeniable. Am I happy? Yeah, I'm happy. Why? Well, don't, hold on one second. Don't, hold on one second. Oh boy, this TikTok censorship is unbelievable. Unbelievable. No, don't confuse my bluntness and my aggressiveness for being unhappy. Okay, well, have I spoken with alleged Ian? Yes. Ian, the the atheist with the dead animal on his head. I've talked with him a couple of times. He was rude, he was obnoxious, and he was also slanderous and defamatory, and he's also not very smart. Have I interacted with Dr. Blitch? Yes. I went on Dr. Blitch, and he is his stream. He was rude, he was obnoxious, he was evasive, and finally he was trying to be antagonistic. I invited him to come on my stream, explaining that he was cowardice, and so for weeks and weeks and weeks, I mocked him for not having the courage to come on. He came onto my stream finally after several weeks of me mocking him for not coming on my stream, and then he rattled out a 7 or 8 part syllogism that not even William Lane Craig could decipher within seconds, and then he decided he didn't want to have an intelligent conversation. Have I talked with Monkey Boy? Yes, I have a past history of interacting with him. He's one of the most deceptive, young skulls full of mush that you will run into on Discord and see on YouTube. He's not that smart. It's just shtick. They're all cringe, all cringe. This is why most of the atheist streamers will not come on my stream when I attempt to go on theirs. The few that have come on have been rude, abusive, and just acting like little children. You mock people. No, I mock people with cause. Okay? Andy, come on up. Explain. No, have I ever debated Alex O'Connor? No, I would love to interact Alex O'Connor, and I have no reservations that I would be able to trounce him. Okay. Alex is the least odious of the internet atheists. Yeah, so Andy, come on up and explain your beef with me. Come on up. I'll be glad to listen to your criticism. Let's see if you have a pair to back up what you say. Come on up, Andy. I'm waiting for you. Oh, look at that, folks. Andy wants to impugn me in the chat, but he doesn't have the fortitude to come up here and support what he's saying. Okay, so Romans 1 stipulates that ever since the beginning of the creation of the world, God's eternal powers, the divine nature, have been clearly seen through everything that has been made so that men are without a defense. What this is basically saying, in other words, is that the world overwhelmingly, and I add from the smallest to the grandest scale, overwhelmingly and uncontroversially appears to be the product of ultimate intentional design, with the impossibility of its rational denial via claiming that the world is an illusion of design. Okay, this is an ironclad rationale. It is a strong positive case combined with a reductio ad absurdum, the impossibility of the contrary. Look at that, Andy's a no-show. Okay, Andy, I'm just going to mute you. You want to take jabs at me? Okay, good. And you don't want to come up and back it up? Good, you're muted. I'm going to call up and just find just for round table. Yes. Yeah. So the world actually is a very strong positive representation that something has actualized the world. Okay? And what we see actualized in the world is an unimaginable, pervasive amount of complex form and function. We call complex form and function design, right? Especially that we see a great deal of information that is behind it, especially when we're dealing with biology. And we know whenever we know the origins of information, it always has its origin in intentionality, intelligence. God's existence is clear. And this is why people who deny God's existence are in the minority. So once again, folks, yours truly streaming and no intelligent opposition. The atheists on TikTok are afraid to talk with me. Oh, it may very well be true that skepticism and atheism is accelerating. I wouldn't dispute that. But I think that that's a sign that we're in the end times. So, like I said, there is no atheist on TikTok. There is no atheist on the internet, on YouTube, in the world. There is no atheist philosopher that can rationally deny God's existence. They all appeal to irrational denials. And when you look at their denials, they're not really denials. They're for the most part, it appeals to incredulity. Yeah, so the impossibility of the contrary is a kind of reasoning called a reductio ad absurdum. Okay, so a reductio ad absurdum is a line of reasoning in logic and philosophy that the denial of the proposition results in a contradiction. So we establish the truth of the proposition by showing that denial of it is a contradiction or that it's impossible. Right? And so the Christian worldview has its own very clear and robust positive representation of itself with the impossibility of its rational denial. Okay, so Christianity is objectively provable because we have a strong positive representation that it is true combined with the impossibility of the contrary. Okay? The Christian God's attribute set are a necessary precondition for talking about what is and cannot be. That would be the sum of all perfection. So in a world where we have an absolute that is the sum of all perfections, then that would be, ontologically speaking, the grounds of truth, reason, intelligibility in any discussion of intelligible actuality. Right? So Christianity has the necessary properties. Okay, God has communicated himself in Jesus Christ. When that is rejected, that rejection is irrational. The reification fallacy is that when people invoke stipulations of abstraction, that they're speaking of them as though they were concrete when they're not concrete.
Impossibility of neutrality. Talk about that one. Impossibility of neutrality. Come on. Looks like Darth went on a break. Oh, he's muted. Probably talking to his family.
Yeah, so that's a problem that skeptics do all the time, and they vocalize or they attempt to convey that they're in a position of neutrality, but they're not. There is no neutrality toward God. You either acknowledge God or you don't acknowledge God. If you don't acknowledge God, that's a de facto indirect denial of God. So were we gifted logic and math? We didn't discover them. No, math is in a way discovered, but logic is an endowment by God. Okay, so to be logical is to think like God. So like I said, folks, there is nobody on TikTok that can refute the presentation of the Christian worldview. Nobody can rationally refute or deny the existence of God. There's not a living, breathing person on planet Earth that can do that. Okay. Not interested in your corrections of how I conduct my moderation, Mandy. Too bad. Go on some other stream. So, like I said, no serious, intelligent challengers to the existence of God, the Christian worldview, but the skeptics proliferate, like clockwork on TikTok because they're ignoramuses. They're not very smart. These are people that don't have critical thinking skills. Like I just had on here a few minutes ago, an atheist streamer, and he was an absolute disaster. Yet he'll be back on today and tomorrow going after low-hanging fruit, having his little skeptical forums there when his skepticism, his atheism was obliterated in here. But they don't care because it's not about truth. Which is worse, the incredulity or skepticism? Well, incredulity is just an expression of one state of mind that you're unconvinced. But skepticism is actually rooted deeper because only a Christian within the confines of the Christian worldview, with the God of Christianity being the absolute, the final objective referent, can we be skeptical about some states of affairs. In a world without the Christian God, who is the sum of all perfections, then you will not have a final objective referent that is absolute, that you will need to stand on in order to be skeptical, because then you're going to be in an open system. You have no final absolute, and therefore you're in an open system and nothing's impossible. In order to be skeptical of some things, there must be a final referent, an absolute, that will be used to support being skeptical of certain states of affairs, that the state of affairs that you're skeptical of which would not conform and cohere to your foundation of your worldview, so that with some things would be impossible. But in a world where there's no identifiable absolute that is characteristically the sum of all perfections, then you're not going to have a final referent in order to be rationally skeptical of anything. So they can be irrationally skeptical, but they can't be rationally skeptical. To say that God is possible is to deny his existence. Okay. Well, come on up, Sir Penn. I'll be glad to talk with you. Okay. If you do not acknowledge the revelation of the Christian God and creation and through Jesus Christ, then the worldview that you're speaking from is unidentifiable and unsupportable, and therefore you are claiming to speak rationally and intelligibly without the Christian God's attributes, but you got nothing. Okay. Don't make me block you, Mandy, by coming in here and doing trolling because you're having sour grapes. I'm going to mute you now. If you come in again and do that again, I'll block your account. Not interested in you little teenage whiners and complainers. I've dealt with enough of these people, and not interested in dealing with you little trolls. Now, the contradiction of agnostic atheism. Okay, so agnostic atheism is a contradiction in terms according to the standard nomenclature. So agnosticism is the position where one claims to neither know or to believe in the proposition that God does or does not exist. So agnosticism basically is a representation of suspending judgment. But atheism, according to the standard terminology and nomenclature, atheism is staking out a claim. It is making a judgment, and a judgment to the negative against God. So when agnosticism represents itself that it's not making a judgment about God, and atheism is making a judgment about God, these are contradictory. I'm making a judgment, I'm not making a judgment. I mean, this is just ridiculous. Agnostic atheist, with rare exceptions, is an idiot. Okay, I understand that sometimes some of these philosophical wonks will use this, but they will then start using the word agnostic and atheist not in terms of the standard nomenclature or their standard usages. So, according to the standard representations of the word agnostic and atheist, to call yourself an agnostic atheist is a contradiction in terms. But what they do in order to avoid this is to come up with their own proprietary usages that somehow that agnosticism only deals with knowledge, and not belief. But that's ridiculous because agnosticism is refraining from belief and knowledge because knowledge is a subset of belief. So these people, they're just dumb, right? Their antipathy for God, their rebellion against Jesus, blinds them to the incoherence of their position. But if you're an unbeliever, I'd love to talk with you. Most of the unbelievers out there are afraid to talk with me because they know I'm going to show that their God denialism is bankrupt. Yeah, the denial of Jesus' identity claims is irrational, period. You cannot rationally deny Jesus' identity claims. It cannot be done. But God does allow irrational denial. That's why the Bible says their foolish hearts were darkened. God says in Romans 1, they suppress the truth and unrighteousness. So God allows them to succumb to their own deception. Thoughts on Gordon Clark and Cornelius Van Til? Well, I have almost all of Gordon Clark's books. I haven't really read a lot of it. I think I take the side of Van Til rather than Clark, because Clark is just starting with an axiom. Van Til is starting with the revelation of God. That's simple. And by the way, I'm reading a brand new book called An Introduction to the Theology and Apologetics of Cornelius Van Til. I was able to get a review copy from the publisher, which is very nice. And so for those of you out there, I recommend that you get the book. Now, as much as I'm enjoying the book and it's very informative about Van Til, there are a number of things that I just completely disagree with in terms of Van Til's thought. Like his idea that God is completely and utterly atemporal. I reject that notion. He also takes the position that God is entirely immutable. I don't hold to absolute immutability. I hold to the position that in terms of God's essential properties, he is immutable and unchangeable. He does not change in that respect. However, when God creates the world, he changes, right? But he doesn't change in terms of his essential properties. And so Van Til would take the position, and they attempted to explain away the many passages where it's clear that God changes, but not in terms of essential properties. And they try to explain this as simply anthropomorphic. Now, there's a place for saying that there are certain representations of God as anthropomorphisms in the scripture. But to say that when the Bible talks about God changing, that these are just anthropomorphisms, that doesn't cut the mustard with me. So I think Van Til, as brilliant as he was, as much as I respect his brilliance as a theologian and a foundational Christian apologist, I think he's wrong on that. But other than that, a lot of good stuff. So once again, folks, we don't have any intelligent atheists coming in here because they can't run their mouths. They can't run their gobbledygook. They're literally afraid to talk with me. What are the qualities that are essential and those which can be changeable? Okay, so God being eternal, being without beginning, without end. That's an essential characteristic. God being omnipotent, omniscient, always truth revealing. Okay? Or exuding, I should say. That is an essential property of God. God being a creator is not an essential property. It's an accidental property. So God changes from not being a creator to being a creator the moment he speaks the world into existence. So, for example, when God entered into a covenant with Abraham, right, he became a covenantal God. Right, so that God changed there. So, there are some very smart theologians who hold to the absolute immutability of God, and I find great difficulty with the notion that God is absolutely immutable in all respects. I think that's ridiculous. Right? I think that God is absolutely immutable with respect to his essential properties.
Argument for God one last time. Come on. Comment. Argument for God.
So, for example, God changed when he went from after creating and giving revelation, right? When he spoke with Adam and Eve, that was a change. When he spoke with Moses, that God changed, okay? But he doesn't change in terms of his essential properties. There's a book I'm probably going to read on that by Ryan Mullins. I think it's called Impassibility, or God and Emotion. So I'm going to read that. So once again, no intelligent opposition. The skeptics and atheists on TikTok are afraid to talk with me because they can't get away with their bad behavior. So, but it would be laughable were it not for the fact that the clock is ticking away. They're getting one heartbeat every moment, closer and closer to having the full wrath of God be placed upon them when they could be reconciled with God. But they're being very childish. Even those who have a high intellect, people like Carl Sagan the Pagan, brilliant guy, but his opposition to God is very childish. Same thing with Neil deGrasse Tyson. Same thing. So there's a lot of childishness in terms of the reasoning of skeptics, even though some of them might have a high intellect or academic achievement. How do I know it's childish? Tyson, he's a mixed bag because I find him interesting to listen to, but at the same time, train wreck.
We're done. Do you still have the same card?
Because he's master and stop evil, then he's not all powerful. I mean, this is just a childish rationale. No, God has a plan to temporarily allow the incursion of evil and then to adjudicate it and eradicate it forever. Okay? According to his plan. But you see, Neil deGrasse Tyson doesn't want to seriously consider the plan of the God of the Bible. Excuse me. Listen, I'm from Los Angeles, so excuse me. Okay, once again, folks, 19 people in the room, not one courageous skeptic, not one courageous atheist. This is why they proliferate like cockroaches in the South. Because of the warm temperatures on TikTok, because they do their own streams, they can run their mouth, they cannot be held responsible or accountable, they cheat in conversations, they hamstring, they bully people. There's this clown by the name of John Cohen. I mean, the guy is so stupid, it is beyond measure. He invited me on his show, and I went on. I said, yeah, I'll be glad to talk with you, but I just want you to agree to come on my stream. He categorically refused to come on my stream. Okay, what cowardice. Total cowardice. And I just have one thing to say to the cowardice of John Cohen. Excuse me. All right. Oh, gosh. John's book is not out yet, so I don't know how you could love it. Okay? John, how can you love his book when it's not out yet? John Cohen he's just stupid when he says you can't choose any of your beliefs. That's ridiculous. Yeah. If you can't choose your beliefs, then you couldn't have changing beliefs over time. Okay? Nobody's trying to suggest that you can instantaneously in any one given moment choose to think differently about stuff. But as time goes on and across time indexes, you can change beliefs. You can choose to believe other things. Yeah, John Cohen is so cringe. He is one of the most cringiest skeptics, and he has no clue about how ignorant he is on the topic. Yeah, so John Mully, come on up. Tell me about John Cohen's book. Come on up, John. Mullally, come on up. So tell me about John Cohen's book.
The book?
Yeah.
I haven't read the book. I just want.
Wait a minute. What did you say in the text?
Well, I mean, he's like basically read the book.
You said, I'm going to quote you. I love John's book on dogmastic belief. You love that book, huh?
That's what I meant, the dogmastic.
Right. How can you love it when it's not out yet? How can you love it when it's not out yet?
Well, I love that stance. I love John's stance on the dogmastic.
It's stupid. It's an utterly stupid stance.
It is kind of.
It's stupid.
It's kind of a stretch, I think.
No, John, let me tell you something about John Cohen. He's arrogant. He's filled with hubris.
All right. This is done.
Right. He makes numerous metaphysical mistakes.
That's one more time.
Talking. Numerous. He makes numerous mistakes.
That's it, guys. That's it. All my Darth Dawkins fans out there. I'm a fan too. That's it. He's running a live right now on TikTok, and I managed to catch some of it. And his positions on God is the ultimate, the impossibility of neutrality, the contradiction between terms of positive atheism and agnosticism, where agnosticism suspends judgment in the existence of God, while positive atheism has a judgment on the existence of God. So one does not have a judgment and one does have a judgment. One actively proposes their judgment on God's existence, and one actively rejects or refrains from having a judgment on God's existence. So it's a contradiction in terms. Positive atheism or strong atheism. You're the guys, you're the people. It was from your camp that Anthony Flew, an atheist at the time, made a distinction between strong atheism and weak atheism, or positive atheism and negative atheism. We're just using y'all's terms. Yeah. He said something else. Other stuff that I'm not going to remember right now, but you guys get the picture. I hope you enjoy the video. God bless you all. Until next time.